the point you made about the private sector being able to really energize, get things going. And I know this is probably too long to get into in any detail, but just a quick take on how are what do you think the petroleum companies are doing to address the stranded asset component of all the carbon fuel in the ground that they have invested in may not be able to use? When will that come into play in terms of getting them to act more aggressively on alternative fuels?
Right, well, that is a very long question, and probably exceeds the time that we have remaining here. So I guess I'd make a couple observations. One is that you can look around the world and you find a lot of oil and gas companies that are very concerned about their contribution to climate change and are actually in favor of strong outcomes in places like Paris. And so maybe a month or 6 weeks ago, there was this little tableau in Europe of BP, Saudi Aramco, Shell, Total, Eni, a whole bunch of major oil companies really sort of, standing on stage with the leadership of the United Nations, and the Paris conference, saying, look, we are supporting a strong outcome in Paris because we recognize this is important. Okay? I think looking domestically, I think you can also find in the United States oil and gas companies that are making strong research efforts into looking at alternative fuels. ExxonMobil's on TV talking about algae, but they're far from alone, right? And so I think you see that. And I do think that if you sort of look in the grand scheme of things, you will find that a lot of oil and gas companies, and ExxonMobil will be another example, have made some real efforts to sort of position themselves more strongly in natural gas. So ExxonMobil made a major acquisition of XTO in that regard. And so, they obviously, they have scientists, they know what the science is, they see where it's going, and they are making adjustments. Many of them are looking at their own operations to make sure that their operations in refining and energy production, have a smaller footprint in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. And so, obviously, there are sort of those are a lot of straws in the wind. I think that indicate, that they recognize the issue, and they're moving to sort of deal with it, as time goes forward.